Well, I'm back now to make the final video of this series of 12 videos. I'm going to try to get this 1981 ATC 110 running, hopefully, and tuned up and running good. I ordered a new seat for it. Hasn't come yet, but that'll make it look a lot better. I've been sidetracked for a few days. I've been working on this 200 that I bought recently. Thought I got a great buy. Paid $50 for it, and fixed the pull starter, and cleaned out the carburetor, did a few other things. And when I was getting ready to try to start it, I pulled the pull starter and pulled real easy, and it wouldn't start. So I checked the compression, 30 pounds. Well, maybe it wasn't such a good buy after all. So I'll have to decide what to do with this. I could rebuild it, or I could sell it again. Or I have a couple other 200s that are about the same shape. I think they have good engines. The sellers told me they did. So maybe out of the three I can make one or two good ones. Anyway, back to the 110, okay? Okay, let's see if I can get this thing started. Before I start the engine, I want to check out a few things. Make sure we're ready to go. The first one would be the valve timing and the valve clearance. Well, we can't really check the timing right now, or we could. We'd have to take this part off here. But that was set in the earlier video where I installed the head and the camshaft and the timing sprocket. We can also check the valve clearance, and those are set by taking these two caps off. There's one here on the top, and there's another one on the bottom. Okay, that's the two things for the valves. Now for the ignition, there's the air gap. That's the gap between this rotor, see the part that turns, and the stator of this is the pulse generator here. And to check this, you need a feeler gauge, but you need a non-ferrous feeler gauge because this is magnetic, and the regular one would be sticking to it. Okay, and then there's another thing to check. There's a little line here, and there's a line here as far as the timing advance. I took the spark plug wire off so it won't start up. And we want to line these two up here, and then take this little cap off, unscrew it with a regular screwdriver, and we should be lined up on the little line next to the F. This doesn't set the timing exactly, but it'll get it close enough to get the engine started. And then we'll use a timing light. We'll show that later on the video to actually do the timing. Okay, the carburetor. Okay, I've got gas in here, and you can see I have clear gas lines, so you can see the gas coming in. And I turn over to reserve because there's just a little bit of gas in it. There's two adjustments you could do on the carburetor normally. One of them is right here under this breather tube, overflow tube, whatever it is, and you can see a spring on it. This sets the idle speed. And there's another adjustment here. This is for the idle mixture on the for the idle. And if the engine's been running, I wouldn't really mess with it, with this carburetor, unless you've had the carburetor apart and have been screwing this in and out. If that's the case, then you want to screw it down all the way, and then back it off 1 1/8 turns, and that'll be close enough to get the engine started. And then you can fine tune it a little bit later on. Okay. Lastly, there's the choke. Okay, it's over here, and if you forget which way to turn it to choke it, it says right on the outside choke. So we want to turn it counterclockwise because it's a cold engine and we'll need to have the choke on. Alright, there is one more setting for the carburetor. I might as well show you what that is too. People don't normally mess with it, but let me go get one. Just a second. Okay, recognize this? This is the part that goes in the top of the carburetor. So when you push the thumb throttle, it pulls this cylinder up. Okay, and there's a cylinder here, and there is a needle valve here. Okay, this cylinder regulates the amount of air coming into the engine. The needle valve regulates the amount of gasoline. So they both come up together. Now if we could somehow push this up a little bit, then when we accelerated, we would get more gasoline and a richer mixture. And conversely, if we could pull it out a little bit, we would get a leaner mixture. Well, you can do that, and I show that a little bit in the carburetor video. But there's 5 different adjustments we can make on this. And this adjusts the fuel air mixture at medium range. At full range, when you have this accelerator wide open, everything is wide open, and this won't affect anything. And I guess the only way you could do that, maybe get a different size jets if they're available. Okay, I think that's about all I can think of on this side of the engine. On the other side, there is one important thing we need to do. We need to put some oil in here. I mean, it would start without oil and run for a little while, but not for very long. Okay, yeah, that's pretty straightforward. It goes in where the oil dipstick is. And the only question a person might have is on this oil dipstick. When you check the oil, do you push it in, screw it down, open it up, and then check the level? Or you just put it in and pull it out and check the level? Well, you do the latter. Honda was nice to us. You just push it in and check the level. And it should be between this mark here and this part here. The oil level should be on this cross-hatched area. And if you see a little bit down here, you don't see any at all. It's too little. Okay, I think that's all the preliminaries. I'm going to go ahead and try to get it started. Okay, here goes. The reason it wouldn't start was no spark, so it turned out that there was a bad coil, and I switched it with my parts bike, and let's give it a try. Well, it runs. It's not like it idled too slow because it died, but it runs. I got it running last night for the first time since it's been reassembled. But, it tended to die, and I'm pretty sure that's just because of the idle speed was too low. So I'll set the idle speed up. There's a screw right up here to set the idle up, and then I'll adjust the fuel air mixture at the idle speed. And that will be all for the carburetor. And then I'll check the timing, and first we take this little cover off, and I'll check through this hole with the timing light. And finally, after that, I'll adjust the clutch, and that should be all it needs mechanically. Now that the engine is running, we can check the timing. And the first thing you want to do is to set the RPM around 1500 revolutions per minute, plus or minus 100, 14 to 1600. And you can hook up a little tachometer, portable tachometer to it, which is what I did. And you can adjust the idle to that speed. It's a real slow speed. And then you want to hook up your tachometer, and according to the manufacturer's recommendations. This one I have, I forgot what brand it is, but maybe somebody will recognize it. Anyway, what you do is you hook up, this part goes around the spark plug wire, and it has a little arrow on here that shows which direction it goes towards the plug. And then these two connections, well, we don't have a battery on this ATC, so you can put it on a car battery, motorcycle battery. It needs a 12-volt source, and what I'm using is a battery charger. Okay, so once we start it up and have this on, the light will start blinking every time the spark plug fires off. And we're going to look it down in this little hole, shine it down this little hole, and look for the F mark. On this one, before I put the flywheel on, I marked it with a thin line of white paint, hoping that it would show up a little easier, and maybe I can pick it up with a camera. But in case I can't, here's what the mark looks like. You can see, if you take the starter off, you'll see F and T down here, but this is what you see through the hole. Is it focusing? Okay, there's an F and a T, and next to the F and the T there's a line. Well, the line is the actual timing mark. T is top dead center, so we use that when we time the valves. And the F is for the ignition timing, and it's a little bit ahead, so the spark goes off a little bit before top dead center. And we'll be looking through this hole, and we want the line to be right in the middle. And here's here's another one, and you can see there's a little line cut in the side. Okay, so we want the timing mark to line up with that line. Okay, I'm going to start it up now and see if how the timing is. The white line is a little bit low, so it's a little retarded. And as I accelerate it, the line comes up. That shows that the spark advance is working. Alright, the timing was actually pretty close, but to advance it, what we do is we loosen these two screws. There's one here and one here, and turn this base plate just a little bit to the right, clockwise, and then tighten it back up and recheck it. And if it checks out okay, then we can put the cover back on. Now we're going to adjust the clutch. If the clutch is too tight, the plates will wear out, and if it's too loose, it'll jam on the transmission, and the transmission will wear out or break. So it's a pretty easy adjustment. So let's get to it now. First thing you do is you pull this rubber thing off, and then there's a lock nut there, 14 millimeters. Loosen that up, and there's an adjusting screw with a slot in it. Okay. Turn that to the right to loosen it up. I know it sounds backwards, but you turn it to the right to loosen it up. The manual says it turn. Okay, then you turn it to the left until it stops, and then you go back 1/8 of a turn. And that's all there is to it. And you tighten up the lock nut. Be careful not to change your adjustment. And put the rubber cap back on. Okay, there's Something else I can show you too, if you forget if it's left or right or whatever, and we'll do it on the other side. Okay, now when you depress the clutch, wait a minute. I thought this had an automatic clutch. What do you mean when I depress the clutch? Well, it does have an automatic clutch, but you get to control it. Honda was pretty clever. What happens is, if you push this lever up or down to shift gears, on the end of this shift shaft, there is a lever that depresses the clutch just before it shifts gears, and then it lets go. So, whenever you shift gears, it does the clutch for you. Now, I went around there and I loosened it up. I turned that little adjusted screw to the right all the way until it stopped. And you can see how much play there is here. See, it's going up or going down, it's the same thing. Okay, now I'm going to go to the other side and I'm going to turn the screw to the left, and I'll show you how it is when it's tightened up. Okay, it's tightened up now, and there's really virtually no play here. This little bit here is because this foot lever isn't real tight on the shift shaft. I need to get a new one, but right now there's virtually no slack on here. So now I'm going to turn it 1/8 turn to the right, and we'll see the way it is when it's supposed to work. Okay, here it is with the proper amount of slack. You see, it just turns a little, moves just a little bit. And same thing on the way down. Not as much as it was before. And you can play around with it a little bit and you get the feel of it. It's a little easier than looking at it on the video. Okay, well, that's adjusting the clutch.
Well, I got it running now, and it's time for me to take it on its first ride.
But
maybe I should take it out of gear first.
would you like to join it for its first ride?
Oh, my foot. Is it going? You never stopped it, did you? Well, I know it runs now because I started it up the other day in my garage. But now let's take it for its first ride. Who's next?
Me.
Push it again.
Hit that straight. Go straight over it. Don't go at an angle.